Good afternoon, Yorkshire Classic Cars Limited fans, and welcome back to the Yorkshire Classic Cars Limited YouTube channel. Excuse me, it's raining torrentially outside. It is wet. It's throwing it down, which after all the sunshine we've had is quite a relief, to be fair. It's a lot cooler. In fact, when I picked up that Stag that you'll have just seen on the trailer, I was actually blooming cold. Last time you were with me, I'm continuing now the series of the build videos for the Rover V8. You'll notice there that I've cleaned and painted the starter motor. Hopefully you can see that. I don't know why I'm doing it like that. Which is just very carefully sat on top, holding the bag on top of the engine. I won't show you now because I ain't prepared, but basically I've sorted the screw out for the front. I found a metric screw and turned it down. I actually started this video last week. Earlier in the week. Saturday it was actually. And I did a full-length video on it, and then when I started trying to fit the piston rings, it turned out that the good people at Rimmers had sent me the wrong ones. And yes, I will be discussing that with them at some point. Now then, right, so yeah, I explained this in my last video, and I've explained it 3 times already, but you won't see that either. Basically, you can see that I've got all the bench clean. The bench is all lovely now and spotless. I wiped it all off with rags, just get rid of the stuff. I don't have a hand brush. I then vacuumed it with me Henry Vac, give it a really good clean. It's actually a Hetty. Don't know why a pink vacuum cleaner is cheaper, but either way it was cheaper and I'm man enough to use it. And then I gave it a good wipe down with a clean rag with cellulose thinner on it actually, just to get rid of any other little bits of anything that could end up in the build, in the engine, and cause damage. I've got the pistons on here. Okay, I'm going to move these ones in a minute. That's the other set. I'm going to do these 4 first. These are the rings that have just turned up. I've reordered from Real Steel, who were actually out of stock at the time, so that's worked out really well. Over here, this is the first piston. Now, I set this up on the previous edit of this video, but I left it there because obviously I couldn't do anything. So that's the piston. It's just nipped in the vise. It's not like dog tight because I don't want to damage anything. But you'll see on the vise here, I've made some soft jaws out of some scrap aluminium. So all you do is nip it in the vise and then just hammer it over and it just hooks on the top. And obviously that aluminium then stops the vice jaws digging into the conrod and what could cause catastrophic failure, obviously. So that holds that nice and steady. It will move a little bit on the gudgeon pin. This is a gudgeon pin. The Americans call them wrist pins. I don't know what the rest of the world calls them. But in the UK we call them gudgeon pins, or I certainly still call them gudgeon pins. The piston can move ever so slightly on that, as you can see, as far as that. These are a press fit into a Rover V8 conrod, and I have my machine shop, or the machine shop that I use, do that for me, and he's pressed those in. And that will be central, so that when the piston is in the centre of the rod, that's centred to that. Now, obviously, the rod can move ever so slightly on the crank, side to side, and it is, I mean, it's thousandths of an inch, and obviously that would obviously come across, but if you look at it carefully you can see that it would never come as far as the side of the piston, not unless something catastrophic had gone wrong. So let me get these piston rings out and I'll show you how I fit them. So these are the rings, okay, Rover Triumph 3.5, and it tells you the thicknesses of the rings on the box there. That's in millimeters, made by Melling, American company. They make oil pumps and stuff like that. And these have come from Real Steel, who do V8 parts. If you're not aware of who Real Steel is, give them a good Googling. It's not a sponsored video. Wish it was, though, if anybody fancies sponsoring me. So nobody is paying me to do that. You'll notice I'm using a piece of card on here. It's just a piece of scrap card out of something I've bought for this engine. It was actually from the head gaskets, I believe. And that's just on top, just to give me another sort of safety blanket where dirt and dust is concerned. And what I do is, the rings will be numbered. So there's number 1. Okay, that's the top ring. Or this slot here. This slot here. Number 2. Which will be this slot here. Obviously, second ring down. And number 3. Okay, here's number 3. And they are bundled together, so you don't mix them up. They are all different. These two are similar, but made out of different stuff. These are your oil scraper rings with a spacer. They're completely different. And in the box will be some instructions, which will tell you, sometimes you need to find an identification dot Sometimes rings have a step on them, which may go up, it may go down, just depends on the rings that you've purchased. But I'm just going to have a quick look through this and then we'll get down to business. Right, so check the instructions. It says if there is a dot or a laser mark on the side of a ring, that denotes the top. There isn't on any of these. Didn't think there would be on the scraper rings anyway, but the top ring and the second ring are all identical, left or right. There's no up or down to them, basically. Off camera, I've just checked one of these in the bars just to make sure there is a ring gap and they are definitely the right size. You do that by pressing a piston ring into the bar and then just squaring it up with the piston. I haven't gapped all the rings. I'm not gapping all the rings. You don't need to gap the rings if you're not building a racing engine, as long as there is a gap and it's appropriate for what you're doing. They'll all be the same. They're all bored the same. We're not running custom ring gaps. These aren't file fit rings. If you were running file fit rings, you would obviously have to file the gap into them and stuff. These are just piston rings. So the upshot of that is I need to find some method of clamping you to the wall here, and then I can start and build these rings. So I've set you up on the tripod there. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I've got you back to front on the forward facing, the backward facing camera, just purely so I can see that you're in the right place, basically. Just going to adjust you across a little there. So first things first, always do the bottom ring first, okay? So first we need to put the scraper in, okay? Now in the diagram it shows that on the oil ring, this gap here, you should see that gap. Okay, that goes to the top. Okay, so can you see how it's like it almost looks broken off there at the end? Well, that's the actual gap that you put on. So that goes to the top. That's the up position, not the top ring, obviously. And then I'm going to turn that over towards me so I can see what I'm doing, because obviously it's important I get this right. Now, when you're putting these in, the expander ring there, these upper and lower rings, okay, go over the top of that. So it's important that you don't pinch it too short and it overlaps in the middle, but that's why I've got this here. And I'm just going to put my glasses on so I can see what I'm doing. So the first ring I'm going to put on is the bottom one. The instructions for the last set of incorrect rings said that I should do the top one first. I found that made it incredibly awkward. So to do this, what I do is I slide that over, try and avoid the piston ring grooves, and slide that over thus like that and work it round gently. So I'm pulling that over. They are springy, but obviously they're not, you know, they're not the strongest thing in the world. They are quite fragile. So when they're in the engine, they're obviously being compressed and that makes them significantly stronger. So actually that's the top ring in. Now I'm just checking the expansion joint is correct. And I'm putting the expansion gap in the middle. And then what I'll do is I'll put the ring gap, I'll just slide it round like that. Just position that there. So it's off about 10 degrees, or the last one said 1 to 2 inches. So I'm just going to go a little further actually. I'm going to go about there. So that's about 2 inches away from the gap. And then what I'll do with the next ring is I'll put that, so the gap's at the other side over here. And this will be the lower ring. So again, just going to work it over there. I'll put it into the second ring groove there. And then I'm going to work that over that ring groove. So this time this one will go over that ring groove and into the bottom ring gap there. And very gently work it across without scraping at things. I'll try and not scrape at things. Don't want to scrape the pistons, don't want to scrape the rings. This is where it gets difficult as you go over the top. Going to ease that very gently, just using my thumbnail because your thumbnails are quite soft, and that is absolutely bob on, nice and even. So what I'll do is I'll just bop you around and show you that. So here is the expander gap. So that's the gap that you use to allow the expander to go over. This is the piston ring groove for the top, which is to the left. Okay, and I'll do them all the same. So that's to the left. I've used the gap adjacent to the gudgeon pin there, to the wrist pin, gudgeon pin. The top gap's there, and what I've done is I've set it about ½ an inch across from this oil drain, and I've done the same here at this side for the lower ring. You should be able to see that there. Okay, so that's the bottom ring on. Now the next ring is the cast ring. This is a cast, I don't know if the cast steel or cast iron actually. Again, it doesn't have an order. What I'm going to do with this one is just smear a little teeny tiny bit of oil on my fingers. Okay, so I've got my oil can here. It's all cleaned up, ready to rock and roll. But just so as to give these ones are more brittle, I would suggest. This is the danger ring, if that makes sense. Okay, so I'm just going to put a teensy tiny little bit of oil on that. Doesn't really matter how much you put on. The worst case scenario is when you start the engine it smokes. But it's going to smoke anyway because there's all oil in it. So again, being very careful, just work it down a little at a time, down there without scraping the open end, and that goes into the ring gap there. So you should be able to see I've gone into the second ring gap, and I'm just working it over without twisting it. I'm certainly trying not to twist it, like that, and work it down. Now when you've done it, it's good practice to check that these are loose. So the bottom ring is loose, the second ring is loose. Now this ring, you'll see it looks absolutely huge, but it will be fine once it's in place. You obviously compress them and that closes the gap up somewhat. That sits in that place like that. They are very springy when the new piston rings. When they get old, they'll lose that spring through being heat cycled, like anything in an engine, obviously. They lose the springiness, and that's when they wear, especially if the engine's ever been overheated. That tends to be why engines burn more oil if they've been overheated, even if the head gasket hasn't gone. So the top ring, like the others, is not handed or has an upper and a lower. So this will go into that groove, thus like that. I'm just going to work it over nice and gently, trying not to break it, for obvious reasons. Nice and gently over, just the other end there, look. And work a little gap into it, push it open, and yes, I pooped myself when I did that, because I thought I'd broken the ring, and we're in. That's all three. Now, these will need to be positioned so that the gaps are all evenly gapped. So the second ring will go about here. So again, about sort of half an inch across from there. And then this one will go similarly that way. So about half an inch across from there. And then when I fit this in the engine, that'll all get caked in oil, and I'll put my ring compressor in. Now then, what I'm going to do now is fit the rest of these. That's number one done. It's not a massive job if you're very careful. And then obviously, once I've done all those, I'll start and show you how to install them in the engine. You don't need to see me do all of these. Fast forward. Right, so what I'm doing here is I'm just orientating the piston. You see I've put a load of oil on them, and I'm not going to lie to you, the truth of the matter is I have just installed this piston, but then I've removed it again just to check, purely because I wasn't absolutely certain it was in the right place. So, right direction. So I'm going to talk you through it again with it in the right direction. So I'm orientating, this is the front of the engine, the dimple goes to the back. So basically they go dimple to dimple, the odd numbers go with the dimple to the back, the even numbers go with the dimple to the front. So basically the front of this piston as I'm looking at it now, not you, me, is the front of the engine, and I want all the rings in the same orientation. So there we go. I'm going to set them back how I did before, but the opposite way around. I've been here before, I've made mistakes, and if anybody says they haven't, they're a lie. But I'd rather be safe. When I was at the machine shop, the lad who does the machining said, "Are you sure these aren't dimple to dimple?" And I said, "Well, according to the Haynes, they're not. But it's quite difficult to understand the Haynes one." the Haynes says the left, but it never really... Now, with what Jonathan was saying to me about the dimples pointing towards each other, that would make perfect sense with what the Haynes manual says if the left is from sitting in the driver's seat, which I suspect it is, rather than the left of the engine as you look at it from the front. So the left in that way would have been the right. So basically what I'm doing is I've lost the little tool. So all I'm using to tighten that as tight as I can get it is just a 1/4 drive ratchet. It doesn't make any difference whatsoever. And I've removed the shell because it did actually fall out when I was trying to put this in. So it wasn't placed right. So I figure I'll just do that afterwards, quite honestly. It's no biggie, really. It really isn't. So that one now needs to go in. So I'll take you over there. So again, I'm just going to rub some oil in there. My hands are still clean, obviously. It is quite nice when you're assembling stuff like this. I rub a little around the top of the block. I already said that, but I'm just doing it again. Quite honestly, probably won't make a blind bit of difference, but it can't do any harm, like I said. So you're better to be over safe than sort of rush and make a mistake. If I break a ring, if I break a piston, break anything really, it's going to cost me time and significant amounts of money. So this time, the dimple to the back, okay, because this is the front piston, this is number 1. I've set the piston this time with a little bit showing at the bottom so I can square it into the bar like that. And then what I do is just make sure that those are pretty much straight. The rod bolts, basically. I'm hoping I haven't moved you there when I grab the hammer. Just move you up a little, sorry about that. There you go. And then using the handle of the hammer, sharp taps. Okay, so the wooden part is what's banging. I'm not oiking the piston with the hammer. I wouldn't use a hide mallet, nothing. Just the weight of the hammer basically pushing the piston down. And then at some point, you get close to the first ring going in. And at that point, you need to get ready to really hit it hard. So I'm just tapping it down. The oil is doing its business. So I am just under the ring now. So I want to tap these quickly. Now, as it does that, it sort of releases the pressure because the pressure goes all funny on the spring compressor, on the ring compressor. So it should all go in quite quickly. Just checking that my rubber hoses have gone to the right side of the crank, which they have. And I'm just going to give her a quick tap, 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 down. And she's in. Easy as that. Okie dokie. Can't lie. The entire body is tightened. So it's fine to go to bed now, honestly. Just turning the engine over now. Square that up as it comes down. That looks a lot better. Yeah, that's better. So push the piston in. Before I get right in, I'm going to put the big end bearing back in. So I'm going to take my rubber hosing off. Famous last words. The problem is when you do stuff like this, hands end up so covered in oil. You can't grip literally anything. Yeah. Let me just see where the tang is. There it is. Just very carefully wangle that around there. Normally they don't fall out, to be fair, but when I did it last time, it did. And it was basically purely because I had the ring compressor on that blooming tight. You could barely move it. Just bob that in carefully. It's no biggie at all. I'll just press in like that. And a little bit more oil into it. Again, can't have too much oil where bearings are concerned. Got to remember it's, you know, the oil pump hasn't primed anything with a new engine. So I'm going to draw that in. And this time we should be happy. We're happy. Okay. So I've turned the crank a little. I managed to get the rubber hoses off there. Living nightmare. I've wiped the big end cap. I've got the nuts, got the speed bar again because obviously no longer duggies again. A little bit more oil going in there into the shell. a little bit more on the crank. As before, tang to tang. Give her a little wiggle into there, that's good. And a tiny bit on the threads. And under where the nut goes, where the friction surface is on the nut. You know what, probably doesn't make a blind bit difference, but it makes me feel better when I do it. And let's be fair, I've never had an engine fail because of that. Never had an engine fail, really, to be fair. Yet. Famous last words. So, pop that on there. The shells are both in square and oiled up. Just run them up, little at each side, just gently. So the thread is there now, level with the nut. Same on that one. And tighten it. Same on that one, and tighten it. Now when I say tighten it, I'm probably putting about 5 foot-pounds of torque on it. Because that is, again, it's only about a 3-inch lead, so I can't really do much damage with that. And that's lovely, it's still nice and free on there. The gudgeon pin looks good. I will drool a little bit of oil down there. I do like to put oil on the gudgeon pin. And I forgot that actually, so I'm just going to dribble a little bit into there. And I'm going to turn the engine a little, just to make sure. I've just used a pair of Stilsons here, very gently. I don't want to dig into the crank, obviously. Just make sure everything turns accordingly, which it does. All the way back round. You can hear the piston rings scraping in the bars, that's how they are when they're new. The next one's a little bit more tricky because that's number 2, and that has to fit on the journal that now has a bearing on, but I'll show you that one. Same old story as before, so I shall stand the engine back up, so it's in its vertical orientation. So it goes from the front, 1, 2, 3, 4, obviously. So basically these are all even and these are all odd. So these dimples go forward, those dimples go backwards. So I shall prepare that piston and get it ready to go in for you. So this is number 2 going in. Splurge of oil. Good splurge of that nice thick race in there. Plenty around the tops there, just in case, shouldn't need it. Can't be too careful. Put my rubbers on. Not as far this time because I couldn't get the bloody things off last time. Dimple facing forward. Make sure the orientation is correct. With the conrod, as it now has to fit down the side of the other conrod. Looks about right. Just going to rotate the crank ever so slightly. Make it look a bit more square. That should do, I think. Pain it not standing there, but there's just no hole. Does have a sneaky habit of keep moving, but anyway, get the hammer, tap, tap, tap. I really am this side. Put across a little, rotate it slightly. Fairly close like that. Like that. Fairly close to there, we're getting there. Good down here. Yep. Not gonna lie, the rubber hose thing I've never actually done before. Whenever I've built my own engines, especially, I've just bobbed the pistons through. With the conrod bolts exposed. Like everything, I think if you use a bit of caution, it's fine. That just sort of idiot proofs it a little. Close. Close, close. Right, so like that. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. So I'll take the engine over again. Check this shell hasn't moved. It has not. Good. So, oops. Get that for free. Take off the rubber hose again. Oh yeah, that looks a lot better that time. So, there's the nice clean shell, nice clean big end in there. Bit of oil on there, bit of oil on there, bit of oil around the thrust surfaces as well. Bit of oil on there. Tang to tang again. Tang up. They are handed, obviously. They only will go one way. Then there's a witness shine on there, polish on there. And we're good. Wet my hands a bit. Won't be able to drive home tonight because my hands will be slipping off the wheel. Now, this video was going to be me installing all 8 of these. Obviously not you watching, but I was going to speed it up and install all 8 and then get the front cover on in the summer. However, I'm going to round this video off here now and I'll explain why. Okay, so that's that. Let's just check that it turns smoothly still every time you put one in. Check it. Oh, that's just a thing of beauty. Absolute thing of beauty. Right. So that's the end of the video. Obviously, all 8 are the same as the first 2. The first one, really, dot to dot, 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 all the way down. And then the offsets are correct. You'll see if you do the big ends, especially on a Rover V8, they are offset one side and the other. And that's what caught me out, because I thought I'd marked some, the machinist thought I'd marked some up wrong. I thought I hadn't. He said he thought I had. And I've looked in the book, and then that just confuscated me, so I just discombobulated myself, so I've stopped. That is correct. I know it's correct. They only fit one way once you get them right, but of course if you put one in and it's wrong, it's a pain to take it out without damaging anything. I did. It's fine. We're all good. Now then, I had issues with the piston rings. I started recording this video Saturday. I came in specially Saturday to build the engine. The rings I've been supplied, which I specified and gave all the dimensions for, were supplied wrong. Which really annoyed me. It really annoyed me. But I bobbed off home and I forgot about it. Monday morning I had to order Real Steel, sent me the correct rings for their pistons, and they arrived this afternoon. Hence I bobbed out this morning and picked that other car up. However, one of the scraper rings was missing. Now I've spoken to them, I've rung them and they're going to send one out. It was funny when he went, "Oh, so you've lost one?" I went, "No, I definitely haven't lost one, mate. I took them out the box, counted them, there's one missing." I suppose inevitably you'd think that. So hopefully that'll be here tomorrow, but I can't really do anything until all the big ends are in. So what I will do off camera now is put the other 7 in, the first 7 in. I will leave the one out that's still waiting for a piston ring, which I think is number 6. It is what it is. It's annoying, but it is what it is. It can't be helped. Things, you know, people get things wrong. So I can put the front cover on, but I won't do that off camera. I'll wait till you're with me again. So thanks for watching. If you've liked it, click the button. If you want to keep watching it and watch my other videos, please consider subscribing. I really do appreciate it. Please share it. That helps me out a lot as well. Thanks a lot. Cheers. Bye-bye.